I want to open it up, I guess the beginning for people to share their reflections, or share something about the trip and what it and any stories or reflections that you have.
I can start out. So a story that I would share, basically I worked at the Rock Cliff where we built basically I would call it a pole barn. I think about 36 by 40. We did that in 1 week and it went very quickly. Everybody worked together. You know, something on a mission trip, you have people from all over the country. You don't even know who they are, but they have a like mind to serve Christ. And it works out really nice to meet all these people from different locations. So a small story that I would have, the local kids would always like to come and hang around. They really wanted to help. They wanted to run the drills. They wanted to run the saws. And I thought, well, you know, they might get hurt, but I want them to have ownership in their own church and their own community. So we let them do that stuff, and they really enjoyed it. They came coming every day, and they said there was no school, but I don't think that was the case. There was no school for them apparently.
Mhm.
But so those kids, I hope they had some ownership in it. Now on Sunday. They did not come to church with us, which I was a little disappointed in. Their older sister did come, and she hopefully that she'll plant a seed to get those guys to come back in there, because we had put some boards up that they had cut shapes out of, and we put for supports, and we had them sign them so that they, you know, this is part of their church and their community. But hopefully, we planted the seed. I think with the older sister, she might get them to come someday.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'll conclude there.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Thanks, Clarence. What about Charlie and David? You guys want to reflect a little bit on some of the things that were interesting to you and
Being my first trip, I don't have anything to compare it to, but I've been telling people it was both heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time. Uh, it was amazing. It was an amazing trip. I'm so glad that I went. The heartbreaking part was going from the airport to the building site, and I mostly worked at the Nightingale project. But the heartbreaking part was just seeing all the damage and how bad the roads were getting there. It took about 2.5 hours to get there. But the heartwarming part was all the people. I had never met anyone that wasn't friendly, and it was just not only our group, but I mean the people there too in Jamaica were so friendly and appreciative of what we could do. Um, so my project at the Nightingale project was working on cabinets that had been destroyed there at the home, and again they were so appreciative of all the work that our group did there at the parsonage. So again, it was an amazing trip, and I really appreciated, Dan, what you were able to put together, and to have a retired Army colonel as our leader. It was very effective. I think I'd follow him anywhere.
hmm
Yeah, very
Yeah,
good.
we really appreciated Jason. Anything that you wanted to highlight, I think.
I guess everything the best way I could say it is everything that happened, God just showed up right in time. Um, like Clarence was saying at the very beginning, whatever it was, 2 weeks prior to this event, 3 weeks prior to this event, it appeared it was just going to be Clarence and I going down there, and then all of a sudden we had 20, 25 people that volunteered to go. So we didn't know if we'd have the people, and all of a sudden, bam, God provided 20 people. Then it became, okay, where do we put everybody? What are the projects? What are the scope of the projects? What are the materials that we need? Um, and all of a sudden, hey, here's a donation that was given by Fellowship of Christian Farmers, whether it was one person or a series of people, but there was a pot of money that was provided right at the last minute to go to Jamaica and to buy the materials to be able to help these people. At the last minute, money appeared. We got there, started working on all the houses. Didn't really have an expense report until the very end, and as we started finalizing what we spent on each one of the projects, there was a secondary effort. Well, I guess it'd be tertiary effort, because the primary effort was to get the videography done by Cliff and his team, but the secondary was to work on 3 projects, and then if we had enough money, the intent was to provide some funds to buy the material for these widows that were there in Jamaica. And at the very end, when we were settling all the bills and looking through all the receipts, and all the money was pulled back together, the exact amount, down to almost the penny, was left over to cover the needs for the widows that was requested. Wasn't planned. It was just God saying, "Hey, I'm holding just enough money to cover." In fact, it was, I think, I don't remember, $120 is what we were short, or $123 that was short. And then one of the other members on the team said, "You know what? I felt led that during when we went to church on Sunday, one of the members said, I was led to only give this much, but to keep this much back in my wallet. Don't know why God told me that." And when we consolidated and figured out what we needed, it was $123. And the guy that was on the team said, "And that's what God told me to hold short from the offering to be able to give to this team." So again, God met every single expense, every single need, and he provided the people for this mission trip, whether it be cabinetry, whether it be electric, whether it be, Charlie, I see you're on, for plumbing. Every need that we had on this trip, people had the skill. So really, that's what I have to say. I'm blessed to have led a team of so many skilled individuals, and God just led it the entire time.
Amen.
That's awesome. Yeah, those stories are just fabulous stories of God working miracles, and just incredible testimony to God. I remember Charlie found that there was a blockage in our host church. There was a blockage in the drain line, and they did something incredible. They stuck something up the line until they hit something, and they pulled it out and measured the length of that where it hit an obstruction, and then they cut the cement down at just the exact spot and cut the piece of pipe out, and there was a rock in there, and I don't know how they only cut about a 2-foot piece of cement out, and they've got that rock because they'd measured so well. Now, that was just an incredible thing that was pretty miraculous right there, and I'm reminded of the artisans that built the tabernacle. And so anyway, everybody we had 2 plumbers and 2 people with electrical skills and a bunch of construction skill, and we were kind of like the dream team. So it was pretty amazing. I'm going to turn it over to somebody else. Maybe Charlie, do you want to comment, or Jason, did you think of, before you leave, Jason, did you think of anything else?
Nope, not at the moment, but Charlie, go ahead.
All right. Yeah. No, I just echo the comments that have been made there, and would just so agree that God showed up in a way that's continually in safety and in provision and providing just the right kind of attitude with the people. Yeah, like Clarence said, that to be with like-minded people that are just, they've learned already it's better to give than to receive, and everyone looking out for everybody else. Didn't have anybody getting up at 5 o'clock saying, "How's everybody doing?" There was no. Everybody was considerate of others, and even though we were all kind of in our place, staying together in a big room, several of us. But no, I'm new with this group here, but I'm certainly hooked on helping in this capacity. Um, but several times we just sat around and said, "Boy, God really put this group together." I mean, we had drivers that would drive us around on these roads. They knew the roads, they knew the area, and knew people, and were skillful in pothole avoiding. I know, no offense, Jason, but the Lord took us through things that didn't really weren't on the plan. How to fix on the road there, how to fix flat tires and vehicles that are you know could have been so much worse. And as I was witness the safety issue with Lang, he was helping me on the roof in Providence, tearing out part of the roof that needed to be replaced, and a board gave way, and he slipped right on through, and it was a good, I don't know, 15 feet up in there, and he would have really been damaged, more than shook up, but he he landed right on the scaffolding that we had set up with pews upside down, and the lid to the baptistry was our scaffolding on there, and that's just where he landed, and a little spot that prevented him from hitting the cement, and that would have been really bad. And he just walked around just saying, "Wow!" And we just want to give God the glory for provision, and protection.
So,
Um,
Charlie, tell us how much what percentage of the area the scaffolding covered inside the building that he landed on, and also it broke the scaffolding just a little bit to cushion his fall. Anyway, tell us what percentage of the
yeah,
floor if was covered with scaffolding.
well, yeah. So the room was probably 40 by 20, and we had a 4 by 4 scaffolding that we moved around, and that's what he landed on, and it just was a reminder that we're just a step away from death. I was walking along the curb myself and looking at having to cross the road going parallel, and I had my foot in the air to take one step to start to go across the street, and with people driving on the wrong side of the road there, according to us, a car zoomed right by from behind me the way I wasn't looking, and that was a personal time that I knew that I was just a step away from being flattened.
Wow.
But yeah, and one little story that was traveling to get plumbing parts with Durant Brown, to the next town to get. It was better to go with them than try to explain all these little parts and things. And as we're traveling along, I'm finding out his story of life, and he said, "Yeah, I have a few supporting churches up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and he told me about that, and I said, well, that's just where I grew up, and very interesting.
You
And
need to
so we
put in
knew
your
some of the
phone.
same people, some same churches, and it turns out that my tax man is, acquaintance of his, and I'm out in Idaho now, but just things like that just
I think that last thing may have been where might have fallen through that one board. Is that right?
oh, yep, there's the hole right there.
There's the hole where he fell through. Look at that. That's a long distance. That's
Yeah,
the board broke.
yeah, that roof was surprisingly sturdy, but they had soft spots in it. But it was just stapled together with little nails.
And the Bibles and everything were all soaking wet, and they were laying around hymnals. Everything was destroyed inside these homes, the windows, the walls. Many case.
But yeah, we were thankful for Leroy and Michael and their driving abilities, and also Lorna and Kimberly, they're and Teresa cooking up, living right with the family. That was a special treat for those of us there in Providence. Um, that was just really a blessing to be with a crew of people that were taking care of the needs of the group and being part of the group.
So, Charlie, if you have more, that's great. Otherwise, I think I'm gonna turn it over to Mark Katzer, and I want Mark also to talk about how some of the interactions we had, because we were always interacting with local people and having them help in the process, and oftentimes they were taking the lead, and then we stepped in to help out, and so it was back and forth in terms of who was leading in the reconstruction, and talk a little bit about some of the people that you worked with, uh, Mark Katzer.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I've worked with two Jamaicans. I mean, in the beginning of the week, I had Charlie and Lane helping, and some of the others. Just basically when we first got set up. But then as the week progressed, it became just two Jamaicans and myself, being Barclay, who was experienced mason, construction worker, and Tim, who was employed by Pastor Godfrey. And he helped too with especially mixing up the cement, which is quite different. You get all your ingredients on the road or half of the road, and throw your sand and your stone, and then throw in your cement, and then make some craters and begin mixing. Throw a water in the crater and mix it all up. And as the cars slowly come up, they drive around, and there we go. But anyways, I was thankful to have Barclay, especially with the block work. He did most of the block work. I was directing, and we had windows and door openings. So I basically, the one day, Lane and I were making all the cuts and for the block to go around the windows and the doorways. And then every other block had a re-rod coming up through it. And so we had to mix up some grout and fill those cores. So Tim came, and so we were, moving buckets of stuff and grouting that. And then when we got the block laid, they helped with Barclay, and I helped with forming the corners, etc. But the neat thing about it all, the local people in the area would come down and sit across from us, and so it was a nice time of interaction with some of the people. Come over, and you had different people just filtering in and out, helping, mixing, maybe carrying some buckets. So I had the experience pretty much for the week, working with.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
Any,
can I read
Go
a
ahead.
scripture? I want to read a scripture. The Lord just put on my before we went on the trip.
Sure.
Matthew 5:14. It says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." And just that was the scripture that I just leaned into for God to really be the Father would be revealed. His, they give glory to the Father because we were sent by the Father who and his Son Jesus Christ to be a light. And so, and my hope, and I felt like God really did do that through all my brothers here. Uh, and the thing I want to share too is just the joy of meeting brothers from Ohio, from Illinois. There's David, Clarence, Jason, Jeff, John, Texas. It was just rich with the maturity and just the fun. Just people who, like it says, your friends sharpen you. And I felt like I was sharpened in a way spiritually through the whole team. It was just really not only rich doing the work, and sometimes um, I hit 70 and I worked hard at this trade for all the years. So I was glad to have Barclay and Tim there because not the man I used to be. I feel like I'm only 30 or 40% physical ability than I used to be. But I just want to, and just another testimony. We're talking about testimonies. Remember the first Sunday we went down to the bay south of what's that called? Black Riverhead Church. The whole team shared, and Pastor Godfrey's wife, Lauren, I understood she tripped over some wires and hurt herself, and so she was laid up. And later that day, I think several of us just gathered around her to pray, and just I felt the Lord just really touched her, and we had that sister from Michigan who was a therapist. So with her, help and everything, God was just glorified. I felt, and just touching people, and it brings you closer. God, it's more than just doing something; it's also connecting with His family, with His people. So I felt it was really a life. Yeah. So I'm pretty well, I think, finished with that.
Great, great. Well, thank you. Thank you. It was great to have everybody along. Teresa, are you with us?
Yeah. So it's been interesting flipping through these photos because of the fact that we were divided in three teams across two locations, there's a lot of stuff that I haven't seen before. So I think that, it was a way that we could do a lot of impact. And like this is where I was this location here where we're working at Providence Church. And it's hard to tell looking at these photos the impact that these projects have on the community because things like Providence, the church serves the whole community. The reason that we chose to support the churches was because the no one else is supporting the church, and there's some government support of people for their homes, very minimal, nothing like comprehensive or enough. There's some international support for the infrastructure of the company or the country. We saw teams from Canada and the Netherlands and all over the place that had come to install power poles and support some countrywide infrastructure. But the church is one of those key components that supports the community, and yet there's not support for the church. And so we worked on two churches and one parsonage, and even well, actually two parsonages, because even though our team we were working on the church, I was always amazed that in the evening after dinner or before breakfast even the team members were doing what they could to fix problems around the parsonage, which was actually a building that no one had lived in for like 15 years because the pastor's home was destroyed in the hurricane. So they were living in another property that they had been vacant. So lots of problems, not only from the hurricane, but the fact that the building had been vacant for 15 years. But one of the things that we probably don't think about as Americans is that in a culture like this very hospitable culture and a kind of a more collective culture, the role of the pastor has a big amount of hospitality rolled up into it. And so
I
when
can't hear you.
visitors come, when other teams come, it's the job of the pastor to oftentimes support, house, or the pastor's family. So those parsonages become very important for other ministry outreach. And remembering that while everybody is recovering from a hurricane and everyone is trying to repair and rebuild their homes, the pastors are still performing weddings and funerals and counseling and responding to needs in the community and in the church. And so their own living situations can sometimes be put on the back burner. So I think it was it was a great time, of course, to get to know everybody. That's the great thing about mission trips, is that you end up learning and knowing more about people that you never would have spent any time with otherwise. But also the fact that we were able to fill a need that wouldn't have been filled very easily otherwise.
So why don't you tell a story about Paul, how he chose Rockcliffe as a place to work on this church? You took a video of that. You recall his testimony?
Yeah, sure. Well, maybe you can help fill in some of the blanks of what I remember, but he was in a less affected area of um, and so what oftentimes people did in less affected areas, they went over immediately to help in the more affected areas, because this is an island that is plagued by hurricanes on a fairly regular basis. And the year previous, the Hurricane Burl had come through, and so hurricane was very devastating. And so the agricultural loss and the loss to buildings and damage was very significant only a year prior, and people were, still trying to recover from that, and then get hit with this one. Was of Category 5, the worst one they've ever had before, that we know of in recorded history. And so Paul Lee went and I think he drove around and he found a church that he had really no connection to at all. And he said, let's get the money together for this church and to help them, because the church, I mean, if the only thing they had was a foundation, nothing was left of that church. And they still wanted to he met with the pastor there and maybe some of the congregants and leaders, and they had another piece of property that had a cement slab that they just did activities on, but there was no building on there, and they still wanted to think of maybe the constructing their church. So they worked out a plan to put up a building that would be like Sunday school classes and things like that. Maybe eventually a temporary building. Maybe it'll become their permanent church. I don't know. They when we came upon it, and I think Jason, which was also checking it out with us, and we decided that we were almost deciding that uh, we couldn't we couldn't take on that project because it looked like it was too big and too many things were wrong with it, and we couldn't maybe adjust it properly and to get enough strength to actually weather another hurricane. But we doubled up the amount of supports that and went in further into the cement and really brought down the walls so that they wouldn't create as much lifting effect in the wind. And so we had the first service there. But coming back to Paul Lee in a couple different ways, this man just took initiative, and he had enough income from his business of plants and plants. I don't know if you saw that slide, plants and plants, and he sells uh, trees mostly to different programs, and really encouraging people to plant trees. And so moving forward, what we're going to do with donor funding is try to work with widows and other vulnerable people, and actually maybe buy them a few trees, have them resell them, and get into the business of growing trees. And they'll already have some market experience, and they'll have some developed markets by the time that they able to produce some trees. Widows and other vulnerable people who have very small amount of property can actually develop ways of producing, even from waste plastic. You can make a polypot, and I have a technique for that. And you can with no investment really, other than maybe if the seeds cost something for the tree seed, you can start a little nursery, and then we can go to the churches and we can say, uh, help these widows out, and find places where these trees can be planted on the hillsides. Everywhere I turned, I saw land that wasn't being planted, and yet the rainfall is really very significant and very good for orchard type settings for tropical fruits. And so anyway, that's kind of something that we can work on going forward. And Clarence, add and fill in some of the gaps here too.
Well, I like the beginning of Paul's story. He would say that, I took on this project, I asked for donations. I
Hmm.
got somebody donated a piece of plywood, somebody donated two before, somebody donated nails. And then he finally found another missionary and hooked us up with Fellowship of Christian Farmers. And he ends, he says, with God's will, there is a way. And he was impressed, if God desires this, this will happen. But something on the plywood, because after we heard his testimony, we had tore most of that down, and a lot of that plywood wasn't the greatest, and we weren't going to use it. But we ended up, after hearing that, the people had donated that, we made sure we included that in the building on the far side. So we wanted to make sure all the donations that people given were used in that building. But I thought it was pretty powerful how Paul took on this. A local guy who was a chef in England for 40 years came home and was helping his home country and churches.
Yeah, and what amazing. And I think there's going to be a lot more things that are going to come out of this relationship with Paul, because he has 400 different types of trees, and we've been talking about ways of getting resilience going on that island, linking the church, vulnerable people, and Paul, and the skills, some of the skills that I have and other people have. And this will be an aspect of the next trip that I go that we take down, is doing some of that training in addition to the construction. So yeah, and Cliff, you can feel free to share if you're on. I noticed you came back in. Maybe you got your audio issue fixed, and then obviously there's going to be some questions and stuff too. And we'll stick around even after the hour for more questions too, because I'll be sticking around.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good. Well, this was a trip that, sometimes you go, and I think a lot of mission trips work this way. You go to be a blessing, and then you're blessed. So a lot have said that already, and just a testament to the team and everybody that went, how smooth we all worked together. And it was I liked what Mark shared about being a light on the hill, and he definitely was, and Charlie was, and all you guys that I've been around were an encouragement and a blessing. So that was just a freebie of going down there. So wanted to point that out for sure. As part of the videography team, we jumped around a lot, so we ended up seeing kind of every location, and then we also went and saw a lot of villages, and we saw a lot of things that, a lot of damage. And so that's kind of the thing with the videography team, is we were at a lot of places, but short amount of time. So probably kind of didn't get as immersed in a way, but at the same time, we did come across some neat things. And the thing that really stood out to me was the people, the local people, and their spirit, just how how much faith they had and how they were not in a spirit of giving up. They had a very courageous outlook on life, I felt, from the people that we spoke with. And that was challenging and inspiring, just the thing that they've all been through, and then to turn around and put seed back in the ground and build a house again and help the neighbors. They weren't sitting around waiting for people to show up and help. They were trying their very best to move on with their lives. And I think that from what I saw, they were doing a good job of it. A very resilient people. Resilient is a word that came up a lot. We had the chance to meet this a farmer who was down in Black River, really, really close to the bay. He really didn't have much between him and the ocean, and he had a little farm, like I would say it was like a garden, oversized garden at his house, and his house had been completely destroyed. And we asked him how things had been through the hurricane, and he shared how I understood it was his brother that died, got injured, and they were literally a block away from the hospital where we were sitting and chatting with him. You could see where the hospital was, and they took him over I guess as soon as they possibly could. And when they got to the hospital, his words were that he fell over and died, and that was it. And there was nothing they could do. But now he has a garden that's full of growing plants. They're knee height, or some aren't quite that high, but it looked really good. It looked healthy. And he was calling his friends over that were walking by and offering them, the harvest of some of these plants already. So even he gave us, I don't even know what this type of stuff is called, but something to cook with, something out of the garden. He gave us a big bundle of greenery. And
Amaranth leaves.
yeah, whatever that is. But then you would know. So it was inspiring. His words were, without God we can do nothing at all. And that's where he found his faith and strength to move forward. And I feel like that was a theme throughout wherever we went. A lot of need, but the people are very ready for help. They're helping themselves, and so when we do come and assist and come alongside, it's just exponentialized because they're in the right mindset and right spirit to really get things done. I know it's slower than America, but they're not just sitting around. They're ambitious people. So a little help can go a long ways, and I definitely saw that.
Let's take 5 minutes and popcorn prayer for Jamaica.
Amen.
I don't know if we still have Tammy on here. I don't know if we still have Tammy Holder on here or not, but she's from Convoy of Hope and works with the agricultural program there. So we might have. She's going to be on with us next month, and I just had spent about half a day with them, trying to see where we could integrate. And I think Ronald Inslow, you just came on to at the top of the hour. So. Yeah, so it's good to have you all on here. And blessings on you all. And is there any questions that anybody might have? We are at the top of the hour and we need to release people if they need to go. But if there's questions, I'm willing to stay on a little bit and answer some questions and talk about, what we're planning in the future and the opportunities with helping people actually build resilience through income generation that can continue to work in the direction of catching up some of these needs that are ongoing, because people may be still living under a tarp or not having enough money to actually fix up their places again. And some people are investing in cement to put a cement roof, but then you have mildew and mold spore issues from the leakages from a flat roof, which isn't all that healthy either. So there's it's a rough situation to try to figure out what to do to be resilient, and all these costs from one hurricane after another, Burl and and Melissa. We need to help with income generation, and people, and these widows that we gave these things to. We're going to be asking them to start little nurseries and tree nurseries, or they could be end up being big, I suppose, over time. But then they can build into their resilience into their own lives and build into the Great Commission, and teach others how to do income generation is what we're hoping for in the future, working with Paul Lee and the local pastors. So, questions?
So Dan, do you have any specific plans for training? I mean, I know you just talked in general there. Do you have any specific skill set that they need that you're aware of?
Um, well, I tried to work out something with uh, an organization called Life in Abundance. And I was planning to do some training with them, but they said they didn't really have the wherewithal to do it. And so we're looking to partner with other groups, and we're also looking at what skill training we could do in some of these construction skills. I'd like to focus on that. I just haven't found quite the right opportunity, and I think we need local partners on the ground sometimes to make it more effective. So we need some coordination, with the right partners on the ground to do some of these skill training types of things. And we can do it with the agricultural side. I don't have it set up for doing it with the skill training side while we're doing some reconstruction. It's an ideal situation if we could, but haven't quite found the right partner for that. So I would, if anybody's interested in that, I will work with them and try to help guide to some possibilities and where to look to find a good partner, to do that. It's just my time is a little bit limited, and with some of the things I have, I'm losing my office manager, and so that's something that I've got to pay some more attention to. So it's causing me to rethink my trip in April, our trip in April, as far as me going. But I can coordinate others going possibly, but I may delay a little bit as far as going down a second time because of that one issue of losing our and having to retrain another office manager. So I've gotta keep all the bases covered. So, other questions?
Yeah, Dan, I'm sure you thought about this or somebody did, but what about seed distribution? Many times when things like this happen, families don't even have enough money to buy seed stock. What's that opportunity look like?
Well, I think that's a big opportunity. We just have to check with the local authorities and make sure it's okay. But yeah, there's lots of opportunity for seed distribution and helping people out that way. Um, and and we need to communicate because some types of seed may do better than others. I think any type of seed would be much welcome. Um, and I was just talking to someone yesterday about that same thing. And I know of a source of seed, hope seed in Florida that we could utilize too. And their seed is, I think you just if you want to donate something back back to them. It helps them with their cost. They buy seed in bulk and they get it very inexpensively, and then they repackage it and distribute it again. So you might have some ideas for sources of seed as well. So
Yeah, we could probably go to some local suppliers here in Pennsylvania. Um, are seeds available to buy there? Is that even something
yeah,
readily
there's
available?
seeds available to buy there too. Hmm. So that's a good thing. Yeah, losing your agricultural production 2 years in a row from the hurricane, that's pretty tough on a person. So I think a lot of these agriculturalists, their incomes are been depleted, and they don't have a lot of investment money to buy much of anything. The hurricanes took out the bananas and the papaya and the mango trees were like all the limbs were just completely broken out of them. And so restarting and you couldn't even hardly find in certain areas it was hard to find certain types of fruit because it just wasn't there because it all been destroyed. So yeah, it messed the fruit trees up quite a bit. The whole hillsides could be planted to fruit though. Um, and it's a real possibility. And if you do have damage from a hurricane, if you know how to prune the trees, you can get those trees back too. So another thing I thought about is training people how to prune the trees, and even it's an opportunity to graft them too. If you get a lot of damage in a tree, that's a good time to graft the trees onto something else that's higher income.
How healthy is their government, the civil government, and what what are the priorities for the people? Like is hunger going to be an issue? Uh, or I don't know what is the government doing, or what's the priorities? Like you said, you're talking about agriculture. Is that a priority then, probably? And what is the state of the government, kind of the leadership?
Well, that's a really good question. We actually went out and saw what we would call the local extension service and met with them. We went out to some of the farms. While the rest of the group was doing construction, the videographers often went with us to these different places and just to see and meet with the government and see what their plans were for and it's possible to work with the government there with the local extension service, and so we have those contacts now, and so we can. I think it's not a bad idea to work with the government there and the extension service, agricultural extension service. I don't know if everybody's familiar with what an agricultural extension service. Extension basically means adult training. So we have an agricultural extension service in the United States through the land grant universities. Every state has its own um, university base for an extension, which includes research and then extending that research and information about solutions or systems of production to the growers. I used to be part of the Michigan State University Extension Service for several years as an agricultural natural resources agent. So, um, yeah, I think the government's trying, but the government um, has limitations too, and that's where we come alongside.
Question that has to be asked there is the government any level of corruption?
My thinking, I haven't done any corruption studies. My thinking is that it's likely significantly less than than most of your other Caribbean countries. So
Okay.
uh, I I didn't I didn't see much evidence of that there. And I was in one of the probably the most corrupt country in the world at doing missions work. Because it's being recorded, I'm not going to say which country, but I've seen a lot of corruption before, and it's very traumatic to deal with that continuously at every turn. It's very oppressive. Corruption is very oppressive.
Yeah.
I think Jamaica's and Jamaica speaks English. It's a good country for us to work with. It doesn't cost much to get down there. Um, so I want to encourage people to step out and help out. And then from there, we can springboard into working in other countries too. And Herb works in a number of different countries around the world, and we had him talking about that here in a previous Zoom. So.
Hmm.
So Herb's another good connection for us. So Herb, you've got great questions and lots of experience, and you're a great resource person for us.
Thank you. We would like to be available to you guys too.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question as far as broadcasting the needs to those that aren't familiar. I have a note here from my wife that someone she was sharing about Jamaica at one of the ladies' meetings, and she gave me this note. I said, and it's from someone there that says, "Well, we'd love to volunteer and go wherever. I have time and money to travel." And then they left their contact. And doesn't that sound like a good opportunity? Time and money, someone who has it, but they just need to. And other people have said that too. How do you find these places? And well, they're God ordained, but we do have to make some phone calls. And thank you, Dan, for calling our direction. But there are people, and I found a lot of interest of just people sharing with people where I was. For the 10, 12 days, and a lot of people interested in the idea, the help, and or just in being thankful that somebody's doing that. And of course, the next step would be to be a part of it. So, where would we send them? I mean, I know we have, there's so many opportunities, but what would you suggest to send them to?
Well,
For information, all different skill levels and everything that they would have. They want to know if they, Anita came and just picked up things that we were throwing off the roof. So there's opportunities for people even with low skill sometimes.
Yeah, I think we had just the right blend of people without a lot of skills, and Anita had skill in physical therapy, and so that was helpful to Lane, who got injured, and Pastor Doran's wife, and other people. But I think when you talk, think through what skills they have, what they want to contribute, and try to plug them into at the most appropriate place. And we have, the Romania trip that's happening right now. We should have another Zoom meeting with talking about that Romania trip, and then Albania is coming up at some point as soon as I get things squared away in the office, and another Jamaica trip, I'm sure, an Albania trip and a Jamaica trip, and maybe a Philippines trip. Those are all things that are coming up, and depending on where people's skills are, we can plug them in, and we can connect them out elsewhere too. So. Um, there's lots of opportunities. We just need to encourage people to get involved and pray with them and interact with them and keep praying with them and for them, and keep seeing where God's leading in their lives as we present them different opportunities.
Yeah, the personal contact is, of course, the best.
Yeah,
And I know
yeah.
sometimes we get lost sometimes in the technology world, where there'd be websites to punch in what you are capable of doing, and then contacts and things. But Yeah, that personal touch is good, whether we're going or encouraging.
I think that if all of you guys would just keep promoting this and keep writing down when you hear something, put write it down someplace where you can get back to it later, and collect it. I keep a note section in my phone, and I wrote down all the people, and then even recently I was checking to see if they would like to go back in April, and so I haven't put together an April team, but anybody can make that effort, I think, and help put together a team, and we keep sending teams down, more teams. I don't have to be on all these teams. We have trustworthy people on the ground down there. Dorrance Brown will take us around, and who knows, Jason may go again if it's the right timing for him, and other people may go again too.
Is Leroy down there or is he?
He's comes and goes.
Yeah.
He just went recently, and we I asked him. I said he was showing another group, and I asked him if we could partner with that other group. So I like to find partners, because why should we organize this alone? We can match up our skills sets and our funding and things like that. And the one thing that I suggested to Leroy for this other group is they weren't sure if they were going to go, and they were going to put together the funding. And I says, well, let's go twice. Maybe we provide a little of the funding for their group for materials and things like that down there, and then they go raise some money when they get back with their pictures and stuff, and then they cover the next trip, and we'll add some of our people on to the next trip too. There's different
Hmm.
kinds of relationships and partnerships that we can do very strategically.
Yes,
So
Leroy did mention that he plans on being back full time in June this year. But I know his wife got sick there, and she's doing better. That's something to pray
I,
about as well.
yeah,
Um, in
I
Florida.
don't I don't think, oh, in Florida, yeah. His wife has had some health issues, and she's been going to Jamaica to the doctor in Jamaica because it's so much cheaper. And you also, Charlie, were thinking about doing some medical tourism approach to things, and I think if we vetted good doctors, we might have some opportunities. So.
Yeah, I need some dental work. I did find some in Kingston, but it's kind of on the wrong side of the island. Um, yeah, I did meet. You talk about different opportunities. I on the plane going back, a father and his two daughters. They were asking me how I was connected, and I asked them, and they said they just went down with a few contacts that they had known and had plenty to do. Um, and so it's just getting down there and having one or two contacts is about all you need, and you'd have plenty of opportunity to, whether it's seeds of the gospel or construction.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I ran into other teams down there too. So, yeah, lots of opportunity. Keep track of who it is that, you talk to that's a possibility, and just keep communication. That's kind of what I did with most of you guys.
Yeah.
And just kept in communication, and eventually we had a team together.